Hi, in this video I want to discuss maybe a very individualistic psychological experiment or a thought that I've had before, or an idea. Maybe I don't know if it's a shared thought, but the idea that if more people go through it, the less painful it may be, or the more people do it, the more right it is. If it's more people do it, the more correct it may be. Or just because so many people do it, just because society says so, just because so many people like football or like this thing or like that thing means it's right and means it's justified. You can say to a certain extent just because a lot of people like it, it's justified because a lot of people get enjoyment out of it. But that doesn't mean that it can't be something that can be changed or be something that can be changed for the better. A lot of these things can be looked at from a one-sided point of view where you just look at the effect that it has, and since the effect seems to be the effect that it's having, therefore it's the right thing. When in reality, you don't realize just how bad it is until you change it to see how much can be changed. And that's how a lot of things can work and function. You don't realize just how good it can be until you find out it can be changed for the better. And when you realize just how bad it can be, if it seems a little sketchy or lacking, then you may realize that things can change for the better. That the football team that you're rooting for can be changed into some kind of other team, regardless of the competitive nature. You can change it into something more productive, whatever it may be, just because more people are doing it or more people go through it. I guess I want to tackle those two different ideas is going through a certain amount of pain or suffering, and then the amount of people that believe something's right, therefore rationalizing and justifying. I like to use those two at the same time. It's funny. Rationalizing and justifying something and seeming to think that it's right just because more people believe it, at least in a certain circumstance, at least in a particular boundary. So, yes, just because a lot of people go through pain, just because a lot of people die by this, that, or the other thing. I think any reasonable, rational person will understand, um, based on a fear or preconceived notion of understanding exactly what the ramifications of a certain effect are, a certain circumstance are, that regardless of how many people go through it, it's a painful experience. Getting shot in the head or getting your arm broken, regardless of it happening millions and millions of times, even things worse than that happening, doesn't mean that it's not a painful experience. Obviously, you think the more unique it is, the more painful. But that's not always the case. Maybe that's just a weird, strange point of thought that I've had. But it's not necessarily something that I'm convinced by. Obviously, it's not true. But it's a very vague notion of association to think that obviously the more people go through it, that means the less painful. It's not always the case. It can be the case, but it's just a matter of a pattern that doesn't really mean much. It can be the case and it can't be the case. It just depends. And generally speaking, yeah, you can say that, but that's not always the case. Um, um, more people get shot than survive from a gunshot to the head. But yeah, that's more painful than getting shot to the head. Obviously, getting shot to the head's a little less common than getting shot, generally speaking. So therefore, I'd say living through it would be more painful. So that's a good example. Any number of diseases obviously can be used as an example. A lot of people get heart attacks and get cancer and get all sorts of diseases, and that's obviously not a good thing. A lot of people have mental illnesses, whatever it may be, even though there's not a lot, generally speaking, from people as a whole. It's generally small, even though it may seem that a lot based on a lot of all sorts of crazy self-diagnosis and whenever people want to claim that they have something when they don't really have it. But regardless, it's small, but it's still a relatively obnoxious thing to live with. A lot of these things can be all over the place. You can have all sorts of things, but that doesn't mean it's any less painful, especially when you start adding them up. But yeah, a lot of these things can be applied to or associated based on that vague association of more equals less and less equals more. Almost like the dichotomy, a false dichotomy. It's a false dichotomy. Just because more people do it this way doesn't mean it's the right way. Just because more people want to do it this way doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. Just because more people follow a certain ideology doesn't mean it's the right ideology to follow. This means more people follow it, and that means it's more popular. And what's always more popular isn't the most isn't the best thing. A lot of the time, the most popular person um, is obviously probably the most evil or the most annoying, obnoxious person that deserves to be snuffed out more than anyone else. So obviously, when you got those things gets you too much, like the most obnoxious person, the more The more you feed the ego, the more likely they're to become that obnoxious person. So more equals less worthy of living, I suppose, in a way that the dichotomy can work. Yes, the more you feed someone, the more likely they're going to be a waste of your time, or they're a waste of all that value that you're giving someone, that value that can go towards something else, or that mechanism, that the food could go towards something else, as opposed to the person that you're feeding over gluttony, and that person becomes less useful if they rely on all that food. So the more they rely on them, the less useful they are to the living organism, the more they're getting in the way. So just because it's popular doesn't mean it's right. Just because it's more people go through it doesn't mean it's any less painful. It's just a false dichotomy. Nothing more, nothing less. Um, yeah, it just depends on the circumstances. It's just more of a psychological video, I suppose, understanding psychology and how all these things can work and how we understand a lot of these associations that are made in the psychological mind of any living creature, human or not, how these associations can control us and our bigotries can control us, and all these fake, false dichotomies and notions and associations can control us. All these things don't have to necessarily have to exist, and how they can be snuffed out of our psychology, and how we don't have to let them control us as much. A fear of a certain thing or an association with this certain number causing a fear or an irrational representation of a certain idea, whatever it may be. Just keep on going around in circles. All these things are kind of unnecessary, and a lot of it has to do with association. And what is what is right, and just because it's right or is means it's right. Is right, and because it's that's the way it is, means it's right, even though you don't realize that it can change and be for the better. So all these things don't really mean much in the end. So just because it is doesn't mean it's right. It's something that can change. Obviously, even if it can change, that doesn't mean it's always right. You got to look at the fact that the change can happen. That change can be for the better unless you realize exactly where you are and you've gone through the iterations and you understand exactly where you are on that scale. Otherwise, it's easy to understand that there's things that can be changed and improved right on the surface. You can understand those things, and a lot of these things can be incidental, and you don't realize it until it happens, based on forcible circumstances or accidental circumstances, whatever it may be. It's all forced, pushed. But yeah, that's obviously another basic idea. So yeah, there's nothing else to mention basically in this video. Well, no, words carrying over from sentence to sentence. So anyway, that's all I need to mention in this video. So if there's anything else to mention, there's always another time, another place, another video. Same place, another time, another video. So anyway, if there's anything else to mention, there's always another video to make on that subject. So thank you, and until next time, bye.